Welcome back to the NextGen Educational Channel. My dear students and children, మరొక CBQ అంటే కాంపిటెన్సీ బేస్డ్ క్వశ్చన్కి మరొక ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఈరోజు చూద్దాం. ఎస్ క్లాస్ 9th either CBSE curriculum or state board curriculum, class 9th chemistry is matter pure అనే చాప్టర్ నుంచి ద సపరేషన్ టెక్నిక్స్ ఈ టాపిక్ నుంచి ఒక CBQ క్వశ్చన్ ఎలా ఉంటుందో ఇప్పుడు చూద్దాం. ఎస్ చిల్డ్రన్, ఇట్స్ అ క్వశ్చన్. It's a case study. It's based on separation of compounds. A laboratory technician is given a complex mixture to separate. The mixture consists water, salt, oil and sand. That's all. That is the passage given. Yes, read the passage again. A laboratory technician is given a complex mixture to separate. The mixture contains 4 components. 1. Water, which is a solvent. 2. Salt, that is a water soluble salt. 3. Oil, oil is the immiscible with water. The 4th, sand. Sand is insoluble in either water or oil. It is a passage. Now, read the questions. The question 1. Which separation technique should be used first to separate the oil from the remaining mixture? Justify your choice. చిల్డ్రన్, ఇప్పుడు ఈ మిక్చర్లో వాటర్, ఆయిల్, ద సాల్యుబుల్ సాల్ట్ అండ్ ద శాండ్, ఈ 4 కాంపోనెంట్స్ ఉన్న మిక్చర్లో ద ఫస్ట్ క్వశ్చన్, మనం ఆయిల్ని ఈ మిక్చర్ నుంచి సపరేట్ చేయడానికి ఏ టెక్నిక్ యూజ్ చేస్తామో అండ్ జస్టిఫై యువర్ ఆన్సర్. ద సెకండ్ క్వశ్చన్, ఆఫ్టర్ సపరేటింగ్ ద ఆయిల్, suggest a suitable technique to separate the sand from the salty water. After separating the oil, suggest a suitable technique to separate the sand from the remaining mixture. And the third question, describe the technique you would use to separate the pure salt from the water. The third question, describe the technique which is useful to separate pure salt from the water. That is the question. My dear children, అబ్జర్వ్ చేయండి, ఏ క్వశ్చన్ డైరెక్ట్గా లేదు. నీకు మ్యాటర్ ప్యూర్ అనే చాప్టర్లో ఉన్న ఈ కాంటెంట్లోని ప్రిన్సిపల్స్, సపరేషన్ టెక్నిక్స్ అండ్ ప్రిన్సిపల్, సైంటిఫిక్ ప్రిన్సిపల్స్ ఇచ్చారు. దోస్ ఆర్ filtration, evaporation, distillation, fractional distillation, chromatography. Like that, different techniques are discussed in our textbook. Now this question, it is a competency based question. You cannot answer this question by using your memory or by rote learning method. You should use the knowledge in this real time application. Yes, let's see. Deconstructing a complex mixture. This mixture contains, in the given question, the mixture contains water, which is solvent, salt, There is a dissolved water soluble salt. Third one, oil, which is immiscible with the water, and the sand, which is insoluble in the water. These four components are present in the mixture. Now, the step 1. What are the scientific principles involved in this? The first property is immiscibility. Two immiscible liquids, two immiscible liquids, two immiscible liquids means, for example, water and oil. When the water and oil are mixed, then those are two immiscible. Therefore, the oil is the less denser than the water. It comes out, it floats on the water. It forms an upper layer. Water is relatively more denser, higher denser than the oil. So, it goes to the bottom. Therefore, the mixture of oil and water, it forms two layers. The upper layer is oil and the lower layer is, bottom layer is water. So, the first property is immiscibility. The second principle is solubility or insolubility. For example, the sand is insoluble in water. So, when the salt is added to water, because sand is insoluble in water, it comes out to the bottom, it reaches the bottom. So, here the property is insolubility. Sand is insoluble in the water. The third one is solubility, where the normal salts dissolve in water. They form the solution. So, here the property is solubility. Most of the salts are glucose or sucrose, which is the common sugar. Those are soluble in the water. Here the property is solubility. When a salt is dissolved in water, there is a large difference in the boiling point of this water and salt. For example, if you take the common table salt sodium chloride, whose boiling point is nearly 1400 degrees centigrade, where the boiling point of water is just 100 degrees centigrade. So here the three scientific principles are: the first one is immiscibility, second one is insolubility, third one is solubility, and differ in the boiling points. Okay. Then the next one, the first separation. How can we remove the oil from this mixture? So once again observe the question. Which separation technique should be used first to separate the oil from the remaining mixture? Justify your answer. It is the first question. Yes. Here the governing principle is immiscibility and density. If two immiscible liquids are mixed together, then the liquid with lower density that floats on the higher density liquid. Here the oil and water. Oil is less denser than the water. Therefore, oil floats on the surface of water. Floats on the surface of the water. So, oil forms the upper layer and the water, it goes bottom. So, water is the lower layer and the oil is the upper layer. Here the governing principle is immiscibility and the density. The liquid with lower density that floats on the surface of the liquid of higher density. S. The next one, if these two immiscible liquids can be separated by using the separating funnel, it is called separating funnel. So, what is the technique? Here the technique used in this to separate this mixture is separating funnel. The separating funnel is this type of apparatus. When the two miscible liquids are placed in the separating funnel, S, they form two layers. The low denser liquid or the oil forms the upper layer, and the high density liquid, there is a water in this example, it forms lower layer, and the separating funnel has this tap. By By operating this tap, we can remove the lower layer through the nozzle. Therefore, the oil can be separated from the remaining mixture by using a separating funnel. When the mixture is taken the separating funnel, the oil forms the upper layer and the remaining solution, there is a water and with the soluble salt and the sand, heavier particles, they come to the bottom. By opening the tap, we can separate, the water can be separated, therefore we can separate the oil. So the one down. So among the four components, one compound that separated, that is oil. By using the separating funnel, we can separate the oil from the remaining mixture. The remaining mixture contains water and soluble salt and insoluble sand. So our first question is completed. We separated the oil from the remaining mixture by using separating funnel. What is the governing principle? Immiscibility and the density. That's all. That is the first question. Then come to the second one. The second separation. Yes, observe the second question. After separating the oil, suggest a suitable technique to separate sand from salty water. After separation of oil, how can you separate the sand from the remaining mixture? Now the remaining mixture contains, after separation of oil, the remaining mixture contains the water, the soluble salt and the insoluble sand. Now the question, after separating the oil, suggest a suitable technique to separate the sand from the salty water. Yes, here the governing principle is insolubility and particle size. Here the sand is insoluble in water and the size of particle is more than 100 microns. Okay, so here this mixture can be separated by a filtration. What is filtration? You know, a glass funnel, a filter paper. Filter paper has a small holes. The holes of filter paper can allow the solvent or water molecules and soluble salt particles or ions. Therefore, the remaining mixture contains sand, water and soluble salt. Yes, because due to the bulkier size of the sand particles, we can separate the sand from the remaining solution by using a filter paper. This technique is called filtration. So after separation of the oil, the mixture contains water with soluble salt and insoluble sand. The insoluble sand can be separated by using filtration because the sand particles are the bulkier size. The filter paper allows the water solvent particles and the soluble salt ions or molecules which are very smaller size. Where the sand particles are relatively bulkier, they cannot pass through the filter paper. Therefore, we can separate the sand from the solution. Therefore, the second one, the sand is separated. Then check the progress. In the solution, in the first step, we already separated the oil. From the remaining solution, we separated the sand by using the filtration. Now the remaining mixture contains salt and water. So dissolved salt and water. Yes. Now our third question is, describe a technique you would use to finally obtain pure salt from the water. In third question, how can we separate the pure salt from the water from the remaining mixture? Now the remaining mixture contains water and the dissolved salt. Here the technique is the drastic difference in the boiling points. Here in the solution contains a salt and water. The salt and water differ greatly in their boiling points. We know that the boiling point of water is just 100 degrees centigrade. But the boiling point of salt, for example, if the salt is sodium chloride, its boiling point is 1413 degrees centigrade. So there is a drastic difference in the boiling point. Now, using the difference in the boiling points, we can separate the salt from water. How? The technique is evaporation. When the salt water is evaporated, evaporation means the salt water is taken in a evaporating basin and is heated with a Bunsen burner. So on heating, the water starts to evaporate. If the time goes on, the water becomes vapor. After some times, the total water that evaporates, and finally the salt will remain at the bottom of the flask. Yes, like that the water is evaporated, that comes out in the form of water vapor, and finally the vessel consists the pure salt. That's all, children. Our mission is completed. We separated the four substances in the pure form. In the first step, we separated the oil by using separating funnel. In the second step, we separated the sand by using the filtration method. In the third step, we separated the salt and water. Therefore, we separated the four components. So here, I can explain it with the help of a flow chart. The whole scenario can be explained with the help of this flow chart. The first one, a complex mixture that consists of oil, sand, salt and water. By using the technique separating funnel, we can separate the oil. After separation of oil, the mixture consists sand and salty water. Then the technique is filtration. By using the filtration method, we can separate the sand. Then the mixture consists salt water. By evaporation, we can separate salt and water. That's all children. Here మన గతంలో లాగా సాల్ట్ వాటర్ మిశ్రమం నుంచి సాల్ట్ ని ఎలా వేరు చేయొచ్చు, హౌ కెన్ యూ సపరేట్ సాల్ట్ ఫ్రమ్ ఏ సాల్టీ వాటర్ అని అడగట్లా. ఏ కాంప్లెక్స్ మిక్చర్ is given, how can you separate the oil first, then how can you separate the sand, how can you separate the salt from the water, like that in only one question all the four principles are involved, as it is the CBQ, the competency based question. That's all. It is a question based on the separation techniques.